can see that the meat is starting to saute nicely. You don't want to burn it. I let it cook in the natural juices of the meat and of course the butter. And again, the recipe for this typically is 1 pound of beef or veal, 1 pound of pork, and 1 pound of chicken. Then I put a pinch of cinnamon and a pinch of nutmeg. Okay, our meat is ready to be ground. Again, it's the pork and or veal or beef and chicken. And there's a little bit of nutmeg, just a pinch, and a pinch of cinnamon. And I added a little bit of fresh ground black pepper to it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take it over here and we're going to put it in our grinder and we're going to grind the meat. Make sure you grab some chicken, some pork, some beef, and put the juice in. The juice is going to be used to hold it all together. And of course the juice contains all that really good butter. See, I'm just pushing the meat down into the grinder. Grinding it up and getting it in the bowl, and then we're going to mix the spices in once we finish grinding it all. Okay, we have our ground meat in there. I'm going to add some grated Parmesan cheese. I'm going to add that in here. Not worried about the chunks because I'm going to break those all up. And what we're going to do is just kind of mix that into the meat. Well, here we are starting to make the little meatballs. Let me go on in close. You can see about how big they are. We just make them, fill a plate, and then we start rolling out the pasta. That's the meat after it's sat in the refrigerator for a little bit. You see that it just kind of sticks together. Makes it a little bit easier to make the meatballs. You can see that they don't have to be perfectly round. The Cappelletti Maker will round them out when it forms them. That's the beauty of it. It not only cuts them and seals them, but it also forms them so you get perfect little hats out of them. Getting them ready, and we just keep making them, and I'm going to start rolling them out and cutting cappelletti while we keep making some more meatballs. Okay, you can see how the dough lifted off the sides of the pot. I had to add about another tablespoon or so of flour just to get it to that point. But you see it's nice and soft now. It's coming off the pot or the mixing bowl quite well. And I'm going to stop it, I'm going to put it on the breadboard, or on the cutting board, and I'm going to add a little flour to it, and I'm just going to knead it for a while and get it well mixed. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm just taking the dough out of the pot, and you'll see it sticks a little bit to the side, but that means it's done. So I'll take that out, have it all packed up. And you see I put some flour on my cutting board here. And I'm going to put a little flour on my hands. And you just work the dough a little bit. You don't want to overwork it, make it a little too tough. And you don't want to mix too much flour in. Again, you make it too tough, or as my aunt says, too sturdy. Formed it into a nice ball. I'm going to roll it in a little bit of flour here, and then I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil, and I just put about maybe a tablespoon of olive oil in the bowl, and we're going to rub it, and we're going to keep it from getting dry, and we'll just put it right in the bowl here and roll it around just to make sure it's oiled on all the sides. And there you go, you have perfect pasta. We're going to cover that with some saran wrap. We're going to put it in the refrigerator and let it rest. You need to let it rest, that way it forms into a good pasta, and then as you're rolling it you'll see some little bubbles in it. That tells you you did it just right. Well, there's the pasta after it rested for a bit. It looks very nice, and it's just perfect to the touch. We're getting ready to make some. I have the board, and I have my bag of flour, and my rolling pin. Typically when I'm doing a lot of them, I'll use a pasta rolling machine that I have. It's actually motorized, but I actually enjoy rolling it out by hand. Okay, here you can see I rolled out a piece of pasta, and I got it nice and thin. It's about 1/16 of an inch thick or so. You don't want it too thin, you don't want it too thick. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start placing the meatballs about 1 inch apart all over the one side of the pasta. And speaking of that, the meatballs don't need to be perfectly shaped either, because the Cappelletti Maker actually forms and seals and cuts the Cappelletti. So there you see the one side covered, and now I'm going to just cover it with the covered with meatballs. Now I'm going to cover it with the other side of the pasta, and then we'll start cutting some out. Okay, and here you can see I covered the meatballs with the second piece of pasta, and then I just lightly pat down the dough and the meatballs, and you can see the edges aren't necessarily sealed. No need to do that. Next I'm going to take our Cappelletti Maker, and I'm going to start pressing and cutting them out. And we just knock them out, and there's the perfect little Cappelletti that it makes. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep cutting them. And what I like to do is I like to dip the head in a little bit of flour, keeps them from sticking. And here we go. And once in a while you'll get one that'll stick to the board. Not a big deal, because when we lift the pasta off, could use maybe a little more flour on my board. That would help. A little difficult to hold the camera and cut Cappellettis, but there you go, and there you have it. You see when we lift that off, the Cappellettis are all perfectly cut, perfectly sealed, and ready for getting laid out on a cookie sheet with some wax paper. So then we could put it in the freezer. Here's a finished product. You can see they're all nice and uniform, like little soldiers. That's how I lay them out. I just kind of put them in line, put some wax paper over the top. Okay, there's a couple Cappellettis in the pot. I'm just waiting for the water to boil again. And then once it does, we'll boil it for about 2 minutes. And take them out, drain them, put them in the bowl, add some sauce, and we'll be ready to eat. They're well shaped. They hold together nicely when you cook them. Well, there you go. You have a perfect bowl of steaming Cappelletti. You see they're just perfect size. They all stay together when you cook them, and boy do they taste great in the sauce. You know, they also taste great in chicken soup. Make your favorite chicken soup and use this as the pasta that goes in your chicken soup. They're delicious.